Awesome. So welcome to everyone to this special session with Morgan. We met Morgan, I believe, 2 years ago at Eat Safari. She was at Coinbase at that time.
Yes.
And since then, she's done a bunch of things. Now she's at Blockradar. I'm sure she'll do a proper introduction of herself. But welcome very much, Morgan. This is the Scroll Node program by Web3 Clubs, where we are working with some awesome early stage founders to exchange knowledge and also to see how we can help each other go to market and get that early traction. And speak to mentors such as yourself, people with some experience and who've been doing this for a while. So my name is Matu. I run programs at Web3 Clubs. With me is Fen Muma. Okay, so Fen is supporting us with this program. She runs Safira Tech. It's an amazing unit that helps support early stage founders and programs such as ourselves, the one we have here. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a flu today.
I heard there's something going around that people
It's
well and then they're unwell and then they're back well and they're unwell again.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster over here. So yeah, so we are calling from Nairobi, from our hub here in Nairobi, and I think I'll let the team to introduce themselves and the founders as well, just briefly, so that Morgan has an idea of who she's speaking to, and then Morgan can introduce herself, and then just get into the material for the of this session. So welcome very much. I think I can start with Roslyn. I think Roslyn can go first.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good evening. I hope you're good. My name is Rosaline Nyiri. I am the communications lead for the Scroll Node, and glad to meet you, Morgan.
Nice to meet you too.
Awesome, Roslyn. I think next, Ochi. Ochi, can you hear us?
Yeah, I think I'm having some connectivity. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So yeah, my name is Ocheng, one of the co-founders at Web3 Clubs, head of partnerships and community building. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Then next we can go to Eve. Eve, live here. Oh, Eve. Okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, Eve, go ahead.
Oh, I'm Eve Onyango. I'm in charge of communications and graphics, and it's nice being here.
Awesome. So that's the team. Others are not with us today, but I'll go straight to the founders and then they'll just let us know what they're building. So let me start with Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm building paylinks.xyz.
Awesome, Chris. You want to tell us what it does?
Oh, sorry. Paylinks allows anyone to receive crypto by setting up an account using their email. And we're also building a frictionless experience for withdrawal to M-Pesa and banks.
Awesome. Then let's go to, thanks, Chris. Let's go to Collins.
Clear?
Yes, but you're not very clear. Yeah, you're not clear enough, Collins. I think as Collins sets up his.
But now, yeah.
Yes, just try now.
Okay. So my name is Collins. I'm building BPESA. So BPESA is simple, safe way to send and receive money anywhere, anytime. It's as simple as a phone number, which is not linked to any telco. So it's a mobile money platform, decentralized, community-owned, near zero transaction fees. So we are building the next generation of M-Pesa and telco. Thank you.
Great. Kimathi, I don't know if you're able to speak.
Yes. Yeah, so my name is Dennis. I'm working on a project called Expendi. Expendi is supposed to help you manage your crypto finances more effectively. Mostly inspired by Revolut, how it works. You can be able to manage your assets. So we are crypto natives, and we should be able to use crypto in our day-to-day activities, spending, managing our future money using crypto, and that's what Expand is all about. Yeah.
All right. Gikenye.
Hi everyone, my name is Johnston, project lead at Miniland. Miniland is a USDC savings wallet, which enables people to save in USDC and earn yields. And also, if you need credit, you can use your USDC savings as collateral. Yeah, good to meet you guys and ready to hear from you, Morgan. Yeah.
Great. Kelvin.
Oh, hey everyone. My name is Kelvin Motambu. I'm with Brocop team, the tech side. Brocop is a provider of innovative solutions in financial institutions, especially SACCOs, that is savings and credit corporations, whereby we are offering, we have innovated around the guarantor services, the automated share trading of SACCOs, and whereby the member onboarding through the new technology. Brocop is also runs through blockchain technology, and we are here to revolutionize the next generation of cooperatives. Thank you, and glad to be here. Thank you.
Great. Then Victor.
What's up, guys? Hey, Morgan. I think we met a call before. I'm Victor Morgan, chief of the MetaPay team. And pretty much we're all-in-one stablecoin payment solution. We help people offer up those stablecoins to their bank wallets. Try to cover changes possible and
Right, might be
provide
on my
Africa.
side.
We see a lot of movements in cross movements. It's really meant to be, show this innovation and go quicker, more efficiently. So excited for the session and to learn, collaborate.
I think I lost
Tanzania, I think I'm only.
Victor from
My connection
Tanzania.
froze for a second.
Yeah, I think we might have lost you a bit. So yeah, so Victor is from Tanzania. He's building NedaPay. Then we have Pablo.
Hi everyone, I'm Pablo from Carbon Seek, and I'm a CTO and co-founder at Carbon Seek. We've registered in Sydney, Australia. We're integrations as a service business. We're trying to make carbon credits accessible to everybody, to companies and to individuals. And we do that by rewarding companies and individuals for reducing their carbon footprint, be it reducing paper or switching to more sustainable forms of transport or more sustainable forms of business. It's great to be here. looking forward to the session.
Awesome. Victor, you back?
Yes, yes. I think it's my internet is a bit slow. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, now I get you clearly.
So yeah, Victor from NetPay, all-in-one stablecoin payment solution. Feel like I'm stealing my product again. I had a very good introduction before, but yeah, pretty much we just help people move money more efficiently, faster, and in a way that makes sense. And I think blockchain is the way to do it. Super excited for the session, and yeah, great to be here from Tanzania. So I think I'm
Victor, we've met before,
the only
right?
Tanzanian guy here today, no? Yes, yes, we had a call with the team.
Yes, yes, some time ago. Well, nice to
So
see you. Nice to see your face. I don't think last time I saw your face, so nice to see your face this time.
no.
Awesome, awesome. I think also this we have a special guest today, someone I think you know, Alan Okoth from Hurupe. Alan, you wanna say hi if you're able to speak?
Niaje, niko kwa traffic.
Good traffic, sawa. It's all good. Awesome. So Morgan, welcome. Giken is laughing at Alan being in traffic. He's speaking Swahili.
Yes, I've
Awesome.
definitely been there. Should I do an introduction of myself?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm Morgan. I am one of the co-founders of Blockradar. Blockradar is a stablecoin wallet infrastructure provider. So any of you guys with your stablecoin use cases, if you're looking for ways to embed wallets so that you can either do collections, deposits, withdrawals, we got you. I can help you with that. So let me know. This is how, Alan and I have become friends through business. And we actually played. We went go karting too last time I was in Nairobi. So, anyways, so that's currently what I'm doing. But before Blockradar, co-founding Blockradar, I was leading market expansion and growth at Coinbase in APAC. So markets under my remit were like Singapore, Australia, Philippines, Hong Kong, Vietnam, and we figured out different ways to kind of like support those markets from different products. And so that was really within my scope there. Also did some stuff when I was at Coinbase that was kind of more global. So I launched Base for Coinbase. Back in 2023, I launched it on the continent of Africa. So that's where I met some folks already. Went to Lagos and went to Nairobi during that trip to bring Base to everyone. Also explored some different offerings at Coinbase that expanded across Argentina, Nigeria, and India. So basically had a very big opportunity. Like I had an opportunity to kind of see a lot of different parts of the business when I was at Coinbase. Before that, I led strategic initiatives at a fintech slash crypto exchange called Coins.ph. And so Coins.ph basically is a last mile payment provider. So for all of the Kenyans in the room, and I guess Tanzanians and Ugandans too, you probably all know M-Pesa very well. But think about it like M-Pesa, but free. There's no cost of transactions for Coins.ph. And so one of the big use cases that we did at Coins.ph was whereby we had a partnership with Ripple. And what Ripple would do is they would go and work with different like Web2 remittance companies in Canada, US, UK. Those companies would send like pounds or dollars or euros to them. They would buy XRP. They'd send the XRP to coins.ph, and then we would do the payout side. So we do the conversion and the payouts. And so basically in the Philippines, there's over 7,000 islands. So there's not only international remittances, but there's also domestic remittances. So we were able to help facilitate basically those flows coming in from Canada, and someone in one of the small islands being able to go pick it up, their fiat from a store. So basically that was kind of one of the things that was one of the products that I worked on. Before that, I lived in Bogota in Colombia in Latin America. I worked for Uber at that time. And so it was really driving growth for the driver marketplace in Colombia. And then at some point in time, there were some regulatory issues. The Colombia market got closed down. And so then we had to kind of disperse and then support other markets. And so then I did Uber Caribe, which basically is Dominican Republic, Panama, and then Puerto Rico. So then I did, work across Uber of those, three markets. And so before that, if you can tell, I'm American with my accent. So before that, I was working for different, banks, payments companies, or fintechs across the U.S. Before moving to Bogota. So that is me.
Amazing.
Maybe you can speak a
Ochi,
bit.
go ahead.
Yeah. Maybe you can speak a bit on what you worked with Hurupe, because Hurupe is very interesting. Local product that has managed to scale in Asia and Latin America, I believe, and I'm just so curious about that.
Yeah, well, look, I'll let Alan tell you about his his ability to scale across those markets. But yeah, with Hoover Pay, if I recall, Hoover Pay was doing their own wallets themselves. They had trying to figure out their own solution. And then it was one of these situations where we came in market, right, and met Alan and team to really get the team over the line to use Blockradar. And with our solution, we've helped them scale, but I think also with them being as a customer, I think they are probably one of our best customers in terms of pushing us to like adapt new features and offerings into our customers. And so they've been a really good partner, not just only on like customer standpoint side of the house, but like we help each other out in different ways, right? Like from a go to market standpoint, maybe they'll ask me something and I'll tell them about something, or like from like investor conversations or different things like that. We all try to figure out different synergies. And so I'm just really grateful to power the wallets for HuruPay. They have grown, as Alan likes to say. They run into these situations where they have all of these wallets that they need to support, but it's a good problem to have. It's like a good growth problem to have. And so figuring out how to scale to be in Indonesia. And I think one of the things that Philip has done really well, the CEO of HuruPay, is to be able to go to all these markets. Like Philip, I guess Philip is back in the US now, but Philip spent some time in the Philippines. Philip spent time in Indonesia. And these are all things that are necessary in markets where people are like hyper relational. You can go talk to some Americans and you can be anywhere in the world. You can be in Japan, you can be in, I was gonna say Russia, but maybe not Russia. You can be literally in almost any corner of the world, and Americans will talk to you online. We'll be able to do business with you, virtually. We can get deals closed without having to see people a lot of times. But I think in other markets where, it's considered like high context cultures where people are more relational, it's super, super important to go see people, how, see like real use cases, see real stories, share a meal with different, founders, and really understand like how you guys can work together. And I think that's one of the things that Philip has done really, really, really well. And I think that's how he's been able to scale so fast, right? And so that's what I think. But Alan is here to tell the Huru Pay story, more so than me. Alan, did I miss anything to your story?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Yeah, we'll have a session with Alan because we really need to learn a lot from him,
Yes.
and Philip as well. So that's in the works. But coming back to Biz, if you'll allow me to go back there.
Okay, sure.
When we met 2 years ago, people really didn't know what Biz was. I
Yeah.
think the growth for Biz in Africa has been phenomenal. You know, and I think you were the first person we met or we made contact with who told us about this new L2, and it's backed by Coinbase. And I'd like to know what was the mission then, and what lessons did you pick up uh, at that time?
Yeah, okay, so this is funny. I'll have to give a little backstory as I didn't answer your actual question full on. So Coinbase's mission as a company, right, is to increase greater economic freedom. right? And that's like its like general like mission. And if we think about what that looks like or what that means, countries like Singapore actually has, I think, is ranked like highest in terms of economic freedom. So basically, people across all social and economic statuses can have access to like good health care, good services, good food, and they don't need to be ultra wealthy, but you know, everyone can still kind of have like equal opportunity. And so this is like what Coinbase's mission is, to use like crypto to like create this sort of like environment of economic freedom that you would see in a market like Singapore. And when I first joined Coinbase, this is 2022, so well before there was any thought of base at that time. You know, I asked my boss at the time because I was between offers between Cello and Coinbase, and I was like, you know, Cello really makes a lot of sense for me. You know, it's very like ethos. Their ethos really is driven around like true like economic freedom, true like development, really focused on like investing in like markets like the Philippines, across like Africa, right? So I was like very much like aligned with like the actual work that Cello was doing. The challenge was that I wanted to be in Asia, and you know, I had to stay in the US if I had taken that opportunity. But I remember talking to my boss at the time, and he was like, Morgan, we don't really do much economic freedom stuff here. He was like, all of the all of the products that we have today don't really support that. But if you come and you're very mission aligned, you can help start to drive the change so that we are actually living towards our mission. And that's one of the things he told me. And I was like, well, that's a big challenge, right? To take on, thinking that there are not a lot of products that we could actually use to scale globally. Because if you think about Coinbase's motto, it's to be like regulated in markets where there is regulation, right? It's to bring, you know, like the traditional services that they had at that time. So then fast forward to 20 August of 2023, then Base arrived to the market, right? So Base was the really only product that was for everyone. Like even wallets struggled to scale, like Coinbase Wallet even struggled to scale on the continent of Africa, right? For like different restrictions of like being able to have fiat on and off ramps and these sort of things. Like if you don't have on and off ramps, how does the product work, right? And so Base was like the first one that like any and everyone could use. And so like Jesse said, hey, like he went to my team and said, we need someone to be there in Africa the moment that we launch, so that like this is truly, you know, for everyone at the time. And so that was me, that got that opportunity to come, and I did that. And so I think like as we talk about like Coinbase's mission, I think Base is like 100% like the first and best step forward to making, you know, the mission come true. And so I think like, you know, by more builders building on Base and these sort of things in markets, um, like, you know, East Africa or West Africa, where we see like having more liquidity, right? So more people who are building things that have on and off ramps. This actually like kicks the flywheel and makes, you know, other Coinbase products be like, again, more mission aligned. And so that's like, you know, the mission and how Base
Yeah,
kind of fit into that.
yeah, it's very interesting. And what would you say? What would you say startups can borrow from this? Mission fast. Everything's about this mission. You're communicating about the mission, ethos, mission, as opposed to, okay, I have a product. This is what it does.
Yeah, so I would reframe your question to ask
Mhm.
me, how should startups think about
Thank you.
not to how they should think about expanding. I don't think we have to use Base as that example for that. But what I'll say is that like when you're a company, right? Like, and you're starting out and you're trying to think about like what is it the problem you're solving? Like what is the problem you're solving and who are you solving that problem for? And then how many other people outside of your target segment can actually use this particular solution that you're leveraging, to then be able to actually figure out your market expansion, right? And so if you think about even like a Huru Pays use case, right? Like they solved this need, right? I think as Philip just said somewhere, maybe even today on LinkedIn somewhere, that like, you know, Huru Pay was birthed out of the fact that they struggled to like send money and like receive money, and so they built Huru Pay in a way that worked for like East African living in West Africa like use case. right? But that East Africa to West Africa, like obviously, like the African ecosystem when it comes to payment rails is like much more challenging than you'd see in other parts of the world. But the reality is that challenge that's still deeply, inter Africa is still the same challenge from the US into Africa, or, China into Africa, or LATAM to China. Like those problems are still the same. And so then you think about, okay, who are the other people that can use this problem, and does the product that I have, be the right fit, is the right fit for these markets. And to be honest, like I've worked, and this is why I say I want to reframe your question, because like I've worked for mostly American companies, right? And I've worked for American companies in other parts of the world. American companies love to think that they've solved the rest of the world's problem. And so they're like, we want this product, we want it to work exactly like this in Colombia. We want it to work exactly like this in Brazil. We want it to work exactly like this in Japan. And then what happens is that you don't know what local nuances are happening, right? You don't even know if the problem that you're solving with your product even fits into that marketplace. And so you have to understand like who you're trying to serve, and if the product you have today fits that problem. And so like I said, what Philip is doing is he's doing it really well, because again, it's the same problem. He doesn't have to change too much of his product, right? It's designed for like this emerging market challenge. Emerging markets is, the whole global south, right? But if you think about now like a Coinbase, right? Or you think about an Uber, they're solving, like Uber came out of the need, the fact that like it's so hard to get taxis in the US, right? Like I remember when I was living in Chicago, which is like not my home, but like the home that I became to build when I lived in the US. I had to live strategically, like by a street that could get taxis. And as a black person, getting taxis in the US is really hard, right? So like you have to go out, you have to walk to get a taxi, you have to hope that they decide to give you a taxi even though you're black. So like Uber solved like this challenge that was like deeply an urban US problem, right? That so many people suffer from, like even like again, like how to pay, did you have cash, did you not have cash, like taxis providers like trying to give you, charge you too much, like a whole bunch of mess, right? And so that's the problem they tried to solve. Now everywhere in the world needs this ride sharing, especially in a place like Colombia where you get in a taxi and you might disappear. Like it might happen. But at the same time, now you're thinking about, but how does a regulatory landscape work in Colombia? Who is the government talking to? Who's the government working with? Right? Like how do you get anything done in these markets, right? And so now, even though, yeah, ride sharing seems to be a big problem that you can solve for, but is this a friendly environment for your business to come into? And then the second thing is like, can people afford your product? Right? Do people even have enough space on their cell phones to download your product? And that was an issue that Uber had when I first moved there, right? Like, a lot of people in Colombia have like, first of all, they use most of the internet when they're like attached to Wi-Fi. A lot of people don't have like minutes to be out. So when they're in the streets, they don't have access to apps, right? So, that's one thing. And then the other thing is like the phones are like, really old or like have low storage. And so like the Uber app is really heavy. Uber adds eats inside the app. So now you've got this heavy app that no one can download and then no one can actually use, right? So then you actually struggle, right? To then launch a product that they're like, no. And like, that's the other thing too. Like, US, I don't know if it's still true, but I know back then, Uber at the time only allowed card payments, no cash. Like that was its benefit. How do you launch that in a market where no one has credit cards? People barely have debit cards, right? So like Uber had to do a lot of changes to like facilitate a halfway working product in a market, but it still didn't necessarily serve the need of everyone, because then it became a wealthy person product, right? In emerging markets, rather than, like a product that was for everyone. And so I said it to say like the benefit of what founders need to think about, particularly those in East Africa, like you understand, like the problems that some of you guys are facing is like so exacerbated relative to the rest of the world that like if you can figure it out in your markets, then you can actually make it work in Brazil. You can make it work in Philippines. You can make because like if the problem you have is so hard, right? And you're trying to solve it with what you've built, likely people who have less hard problems can also use your solution too, if that makes any sense. Whereas like you build a problem where like again you've built a first world problem where you expect people to have money, people to have iPhones, people to have credit cards, and then you move it to another market, then it becomes really hard. So I think like really think about how like what problem you're solving and like where are other markets that are suffering from similar problems that you can scale fast. Like I said, Google Pay is a good example of doing that.
Great. So I know Ochi had provided a bunch of
He did.
lines, but the conversation is getting amazing. So, but I'd like to assume safely that the floor is open at any time for the founders to ask questions. I don't think it's a lecture format, right? So, teams, feel free to engage Morgan. Gikenya, I know you're building around lending. I don't know what questions you might have around that.
And if you don't have questions, I have a list of
Mm.
questions I can answer. So this is definitely your time, but if you don't have questions, we can go through the
Fen
questions.
has a question.
Okay.
You're building a product that already like whatever whatever problem is there that exists in the market that you're targeting has already been solved, but then you're doing a similar product. How do you then penetrate the market and find your own people for it?
That's a great question. And that's exactly what we're doing with Blockradar, right? So Blockradar is wallet infrastructure. There's Fireblocks, there's Privy, there's Defense. There's a whole bunch of players in the space, right? But you think about like, and again, I'll use my example to then make it more broad. But if you think about wallet infrastructure, it's been around for a minute, right? But it was like kind of before its time. And so if you think about like a Fireblock, some of these other guys, they built a product because like crypto native companies needed a way to like move their like crypto flows. And so wallet infrastructure is like the only real way to do that. But now the challenge is like they've built a product for a really niche market, right? Whereby you have smart. I think I got muted somewhere along the way. Um, you have like blockchain engineers, you have all these things that they're solving for. And what we realized, like particularly my co-founder, he had launched a Web3 company before Blockradar, that like it's impossible to understand the API documentation that comes with like some of these big players. They've literally designed themselves to serve one, blockchain native teams, and then two, more importantly, the West. Like all this stuff comes from the West. And then can they try to push it into these markets? And so we saw this as a great opportunity whereby one, like we know that if we focus on like simplifying the ability to use wallets, it will then open the door for like, traditional fintechs, so some world where like M-Peso or like Flutterwave, some world where these guys can actually use the product because they don't have like Web3 native teams. And then again, it's something that like we know like the fintech problem in emerging markets because like we either lived, work, or from these markets. Whereas again, like Fireblocks is built out of something else that, is trying to then solve American or Western use case. And so to answer that more broadly, as you think about your businesses and there's already competition in the market, like think about what is your unique selling proposition, right, to these players. And to be completely honest, we see startups of all sizes that come through our door. We have a lot of people who are on our free plan, and when you have a free plan, like people are just like getting started. And to be very, very honest, like we hear so many people all trying to solve the same problem. It's not my job to be like, you sure you want to do that? Like there's like 30 other people doing this in the exact same way you're doing it. It's like 30 other Nigerian companies doing the exact same thing, or 30 other like kidney companies doing the exact same thing, right? It's not my job to go tell them Are you sure? My job is just to support them right through their journey. But like, if they were on this call, I'd be like, hey, like, what is it that's specifically unique that you can do that your others can't? Because if you can either simplify something for your customers, if you have a specific niche where you have a specific core audience that you have and your customers really can't, your competition can't really tackle that customer segment well, then do it. But rather than like, oh, this is a problem, and like there continues to be a problem, and like, you know, lots of people are solving it, but you want to solve it too. Like that's not that's the fastest way to close your doors, right? So really thinking about like, where is your unique selling proposition coming into play? And I think like one of the things, again, we'll just use HuruPay as an example. Like what HuruPay is doing, there are quite a few players doing, you know, this whole ability to do like stablecoin, like USD accounts, like right there just are. But what they're doing at HuruPay that's a bit different is like they're bringing all these extra benefits and value so that like you're not just using HuruPay as like a wallet, you're using it as like a way to do like a banking partner, using it as a way to invest in like stocks and stuff. Like so, you know, what turned into a product that is, I mean, starting to become more commonplace is now like edged itself ahead of their competitors and really being this like one-stop shop for everything you need. And this is why I think HuruPay, you know, will continue to win the market. Because when I was in Mexico, you know, someone was telling me like there's a dollar app. So dollar app I think is kind of similar to like what HuruPay does. But dollar app seems to kind of like have a few features and stop there. But I see constantly the HuruPay team like figuring out what their customers want and like pressing forward, and like the velocity in which these guys ship, like, and you know, Alan being the CTO here, like you got to give Alan all of his props. But like the velocity in which they ship is crazy. And so like that is what you have to do as well. So like it's one thing to solve a problem, it's one thing to have a unique customer proposition, and it's another thing to ship fast. Like if you don't ship fast, someone will come in and take off ahead of you, right? And so I think that's the other thing I'd say when you're in a market with fierce competition.
Maybe I can add something.
Awesome.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I think the other advantage of solving a problem that which already has competitors is that you don't have to do re-education, like the users already know, are aware of the problem, so you can take advantage of that. Yeah, so and then the other thing is that there's validation that the problem is really prevalent. So there are those two advantages that you can build upon. So don't shy away from solving a problem that's already being solved. Let's take, for example, Luma. There are so many event marketplace sites, but then there's somehow came in and took over the market somehow. I don't know how they did it, but they're unique in your own way. So just believe in what you're offering, and then and I believe you'll get to win the market. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Loom was a really good example because Luma came in, like Eventbrite was already there, right? But Luma came in and took these niche, like Web3 crypto, like again, things that people didn't really touch back in the day. And they took this really niche market and became the de facto, like crypto, you know, events booking platform. And the thing that's crazy is like crypto people love to party. Like in every market, people are just partying all the time in the crypto space. So like they took a spot with a very niche customer segment that happened to just like really double down on events. But Pablo, sorry, do you have your hand up?
Uh, Pablo from Colombia.
Oh, hi. So I'm interested in your experience. I don't mean to sound controversial. As a Black person expanding into places like Latin America and Asia, because like, you know, a lot of people have got technical capacity, but they lack the quote unquote guts to like expand into these markets. So I'd like to understand your experience and how did you get over, how did you build your courage to go into these markets where, Africans usually don't operate?
Yeah, yeah. Just to add to that question. So this is a GTM session, right? So I was talking to Alan and he gave me like a preview of how to actually start, right? So there's the actual action steps that you take, like the marketing and like what does that look like when Hurupe says enters Mexico or let's say Indonesia, like basically how do you hit the ground?
So you want me to answer both of those together? Pablo's
Okay.
question, or Alan, go ahead. Sorry.
You're better placed. Let's start with the Coinbase experience.
I'll just yeah. So, but both are true. So, okay. The thing is, everyone in the world wants, particularly in markets where like everyone outside of like Europe and the US, like they want their stories to be told, right? They want their stories to be told. They want more and more businesses and more opportunity to come to their markets. That's one of the things that I've found, right? And so you actually get more people like who are interested in working with you in Latin America and Asia than you would expect. Like is it like you'd be surprised how open-minded someone is for you to want to be in their markets, want to serve their markets and provide whatever it is, whether it's more jobs, more opportunities, or what have you. Like, so you'd be surprised the welcoming nature of people. Now, to that being said, I'm American, right? And so like one of these things that is hard to navigate as like a black American is that, in the US I'm a black American. And the rest of the world, and the rest of these parts of the world, I'm just American, even though I'm obviously black. And so that American does somehow give people like, something to listen to. So like I'm just being frank. Like that is one of the things I've noticed. And I think the other thing that's true about Asia, irrespective of color and nationality that you have, is that like if you're the best, they don't care. Like if you're the best to come in and do the thing, you've came down, you've had a meal with them, you've had a drink with them, they don't care. Not like you see in like the West, right? You go to Europe, people are like, who are these people, who are these Africans, or who are these Black Americans, right? It's a very different thing than being in the rest of the world. So I'll say that, like, you'd be surprised how open-minded other parts of the world are just relative than like the US and Europe, where there are more black people, right? But they're less open-minded. Now, with respect to like going back to like how do you go and close a deal in Indonesia, and again, how do you close a deal in Indonesia being black? And the way you close a deal in Indonesia is you go to Indonesia, you find the people that like are well connected in the market, and then you go and you have a meal with them. You let them take you to wherever their favorite restaurants are. You just go and you do whatever it is that they want to do. Like you really do. You just go and do exactly what they want to show you. You say yes to everything, and you just fully immerse yourself in a new experience, right? New food, new experience. You try it, it's not great. Like you just try. Um, and when you do that, you start to build those relationships that you can't do like on, like you can't do online, because it becomes very transactional when you're in a virtual conversation, right? It's like, here's what I can provide you, here's what you can provide me. It's a transaction. But like, and again, like a market like Indonesia, they're not transactional, right? They are much more relational. And so being able to have that shared experience is how you can actually go and then start to close those deals. And again, like I haven't had a chance to talk to Philip just yet, but like my guess is Philip did all of these things. He's gone through, had the meals, had the different um you know uh pork meals in the Philippines, or he's had the random like halal meals in Indonesia. He's just like he's probably going around and having all of the different situations to make sure he can feel like in these, deeply integrated. And that's what I did. Like I remember the first time I went to Vietnam, we were with partners with Axie Infinity. And you guys know Axie Infinity was like huge, right? So those guys took us out. We were drinking warm beers and like eating stuff that I never had before. But I was like, whatever, like this is so great. Like this is so great that they're really welcoming me in. And these people now are people I can call on when I go to Vietnam, you know, three years later, because I've been able to build that relationship. And so then, you know, after you've built that relationship, it's really a lot about like how do you find mutually beneficial opportunities for yourselves, right? In the case of like the partner that Huru Pay just partnered with on the so basically Huru Pay partnered with two partners that I generally know well, one in Indonesia, one in Philippines. And one of the people they've partnered with in the Philippines is Coins.ph. It's my ex employer, right? I know Philippine Coins.ph deeply wants to expand outside of Philippines. So they want to be everywhere. They want to be in Asia. Now the new CEO, he's this guy comes has a Chinese background, you know, like he knows there's a big opportunity. So my understanding is like they see a large opportunity with a large player or soon to be large player in Africa. So like they want to make this connection work, right? Same thing with Indonesia. The partner that they're working with is again not maybe not as large as like Coins.ph, but they're like very influential in terms of what they're going to be able to offer into the market. And so being able to partner with them, knowing that they too have some South Africa flows that they see that are going to be important. So for them, it's quite strategic to like make these partnerships. And so like I'm not saying like go and play with the small dogs, but it's like go and find people who are like who really like need you what you're providing too, right? Like they have some goals in mind to expand to Africa or to beyond, and where can you actually provide those synergies? And so it's first getting that meal and doing whatever you need to do to make that friendship happen. And then secondly, it's like, okay, what's mutual, what is it that they want, right? When you know what is it that I want and how can this be mutually beneficial? So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I have a question. It's kind of
Sure.
random. Um, so I mean, you're obviously very successful in what you do, and you're sought out after, right? Uh, or what do you think, or what would you say it is about yourself or skills or that these organizations feel like, okay, Morgan is a great fit. There's something that she knows that maybe someone else doesn't know. What would you say that is?
You know, I mean, now I've had like this global experience, but before I had the global experience, you know, I didn't really have much else to offer other than myself. And so I think that, you know, one of the things that probably drove my initial success was curiosity, right? Like if I think about so I worked at Braintree. Braintree is like the Stripe competitor. They're like the OG Stripe competitor. So Braintree was bought by PayPal. And so like now people don't hear about Braintree because you know they're under the umbrella. But I started my career, one of my tech career at Braintree, and our job at that time was just to do like domestic pricing. Like that's it. Like I my job was to like price merchants like Uber, Airbnb, like figure out their pricing and like, you know, make continue to keep our clients happy, but then make money for Braintree. But then I started like getting really curious about what's happening in Europe, really curious about what's happening in Asia. And then I started to do some deep dives on like the regulatory landscape, found out that Europe had like slashed their fees. So basically we were like wildly profitable in our European markets, but at the same time, like we had opportunity to actually win more clients because we could drop the price given like the cost structure had slashed. And so like none of my teammates cared. Like my teammates were like good with the work that they did and they were happy just doing that. But like my strong curiosity for that, for to learn more actually allowed me to like drive all of our international pricing. And so then I did that for EMEA and I did that for APAC. And so before I even landed in any of these countries, before I went to Europe, before I went to Asia to visit, I was already like supporting merchants in these markets. And so then that curiosity then led me to want to actually go live abroad. And then, you know, again, the fact that now someone in Colombia doesn't act, it's not every day that someone from the US wants to come and like work for Uber Colombia. So, right, they're like happy to get someone with, you know, a good background and good experience and then strong curiosity to come into the market. And so like I'd say my curiosity has been probably my largest success driver because a lot of people aren't. And that curiosity allows you to then go eat those meals that are like strange, right? It's like that curiosity allows you to go and have like new experiences. It allows you to go karting with Alan, somewhere in Nairobi, right? Like it's that curiosity I think that has like compounded on my ability to be successful these days.
Awesome, awesome. I could go on for days asking questions. For me, this is a real privilege. I'll let some of the guys ask some questions.
Maybe some of the people building around payments, remittances, Collins, you're building an M-Pesa competitor,
Yeah.
maybe are there specific questions you might have, questions specific to your use case?
Yeah, maybe something about I've been talking around with a couple of guys in terms of the idea of BPESA. So basically, we are building. I will also mention that we are probably the first, will be the first major competitor to M-Pesa from the standpoint of transaction fees, community-driven infrastructure and such. But then there's maybe from an expansion of in the market, there's that legal bit of it, yeah, because currently there is the whole regulation around payment, CBK, the central bank and such, especially even going to different, other countries. So how can I then structure the product to still be a competitor, but still be on the right side of compliance, yeah, without also making people feel very not feel like we are forcing them to be compliant. Because currently, if you look at how, especially here in Kenya, how M-Pesa works or Safaricom works is for you to get a Safaricom line or an M-Pesa account, you go to an agent, yeah. So Safaricom has offloaded the KYC process to the agent. Agent can see your face, see your ID card, and they just register you. But then what we're saying with BPESA is, as much as we have agents are purely for liquidity points on ground. But then for compliance purposes, you need to maybe take, a liveliness check and an image of your ID, which I think from a user perspective looks a bit tricky. They're already doing it, but onboarding looks will be an issue. So how can I then market or give a story or I don't know, do something around that?
I think this is an interesting solution that you have. And here's what I'll tell you. Again, I've worked in two regulatory complex companies. Like Uber was illegal in Colombia. And while Coinbase wasn't illegal in Singapore, it was not really I mean, it's not that it wasn't welcome because we had a license, but like crypto in general is not a welcome sort of thing to publicize across Singapore. And one of the things I think I'd tell you, if you're in an interesting spot, is what I'll say, because like there are many people who win when M-Pesa wins, right? And so when M-Pesa doesn't win, many people who lose. So, so yeah, I'm trying to choose my words carefully here. And so I think what you need to think about in like both a Coinbase and like a Uber strategy is like, how do you have like the right policy influence, right? And so I think one of the things that Coinbase did well was like we would have like policy people, and they still do, like talking to people in the policy people talking to the Kenyan Central Bank, policy people talking to, the Singapore, like regulatory body. Same thing in Philippines. Like this is super, super important that you start to have those conversations where you can, because you want to be on the right side, right? You want the regulatory bodies, you want those who are involved when M-Pesa wins, you want those people to also be involved when you win. And so these people need to be on your side, right? And so that's what I say, like this is a complex sort of situation because like I said, M-Pesa is like this in Philippines, they have exactly the same sort of offering. But the thing is, there's like 4 players. There's 4 players that are basically M-Pesa. So that's why it's completely free and you don't have to see all these high fees that come with M-Pesa because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even make any sense when you're doing in-app transaction. Where's the cost, right? Well, the cost are the people who stand to earn and stand to win, right? So you've got to figure out a delicate way of making sure those people stand to win as you win, right? And thinking about those things because if you're on the wrong side, then you won't win. Like they'll make sure everything is possible that you don't. So I'd say like starting out and like befriending people who like have these connections with the government, befriending people who have these, policy relationships. That is what I would suggest you do because like the AML compliance piece, that's like you got to solve it here. And this is like, that's a problem over here. If you solve this, then this will be easy to solve. If you try to solve this and you don't solve this, then, I think you'll hit a door before you can open it. So I think it's better to try to open these doors, make bridges, and make sure everyone who wins is on your side.
Maybe I can add something. I think maybe Collins can look at failures of Airtel Money, where despite them having low fees, how comes haven't they succeeded in replacing Safaricom within the market? So I think that goes to the wide agent network that Safaricom has. So probably if you focus on that, try on board those M-Pesa agents to be part of your project. I think that will create a good foundation. At least try to test with that before you get famous. When you get famous, then CBK will be on your ass.
So yeah, thank you for that. Just to add, how B-Pesa works in terms of infrastructure. So the agents part, we've allowed anyone to be an agent. So, and of course, offering a higher commission than what Safaricom currently offers. So we are trying to onboard the current Safaricom agents, and anyone can be an agent as long as you have the application. So yeah, so we are as you said, we're still trying before we become famous. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
Yeah, but I just think like not too many organizations have given M-Pesa around for the money. Airtel, to be honest, is just incompetent. I mean, they're struggling with phone calls, leave alone even M-Pesa. So yeah, you might have a better chance than them, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can
Can I add something there before we move to the next question?
Yes, go ahead.
I think in the telecom space, I didn't know Singapore had a lot of MNOs as well, because we have that structure here in Tanzania where we have so many mobile money network providers that are in the payment space. And the biggest challenge is price. The fees are still there. Now we have a new competitor, Cellcom, and you guys should check it out. They're literally like creating digital wallets and they're bringing the payments down, but you're still racking 10%, 15% for one payment, even if it's cross. So you have a payment fee, and we're doing this yesterday. If I have like $2 in Tanzania, and I want to move it to someone else, I'm still like getting charged. It doesn't matter where I'm sending. So there's a fee for sending and there's a fee for withdrawing. And I think from all the points I was getting from everyone, Alan, what you mentioned about the agent network, I think what we saw with telecoms is like they build a huge network infrastructure physically because they know cash is king in Africa. Now we're coming in with digital assets like tokens. I think this need new infrastructure rather than relying on the same infrastructure these guys had, because you find you're handling the same so as you find you're like stumbling on the same roadblock. So I'm curious, Morgan, about Blockradar with because I think what we want to do is find like stable ways of sending payments, either it's stable coins or digital assets converting. How do we abstract the price gas and the cost of onboarding one users? What is the cost of acquisition for me holding a digital asset to begin with? And then what is the cost? We know sending it internally is cheap, but how do I get out and get in? If we can solve these problems very well, I think all these innovations, even for what we're trying to do in Kenya and Tanzania, I think is really huge use cases because we are mobile money first. And I think the infrastructure, we're relying on this legacy infrastructure. How do you guys think, how do we can create our own and really like rally people? Is it product first, service first? So something so unique that people don't care about the fees at the beginning. And later on, they're like, okay, I'm hooked on this. I want to stay and never get out. Or do we go in the same route, like launch, activate the same way telecoms did? It might take a longer route because we know the players are there, it's endless. So I'm really struggling with this even what as we're doing with our product. It's like, what is the best fit? Do we go community first? Do we go like head to head with telecoms and what they did? But the answer is still to me, in or out. How do we solve that problem?
Yeah, so I think this kind of goes hand in hand in this question that Chris asks at the same time. So Chris asks basically, what are the growth levers you've seen to actually onboard non-crypto native users into Web3? And I think that's kind of what you're asking too, but you're asking like what cost do you kind of have to absorb to get there? And the thing is you do kind of have to absorb the cost. And so like with Blockradar, this is one of the reasons why my co-founder built this concept of a gas station, right? And so this gas station concept basically allows any withdrawal. So basically, anytime you're moving money within the ecosystem, within like the Blockradar ecosystem, whether it's like in your ecosystem or the ecosystem that you've extended to your customers, the gas fees can be abstracted away, right? And so that means now the customer doesn't even have to feel the clunkiness of crypto, right? Because the clunkiness of crypto is like those gas fees, and you're like, what are these fees? Like, I didn't have to charge, I wasn't charged these fees before. And like you said, someone in an M-Pesa network is used to fees, but anyone outside of that M-Pesa network is not necessarily used to like those fees when you're just sending in app, in ecosystem, right? And so I do think like being able to abstract away those fees is like the first thing you need to do. And that means that you have to eat those fees. Now, one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to have partnerships with the L1s and L2s so that they can go pay for the gas fees. Because ultimately they want everyone to use their chain. Well, if you want everyone to use your chain, then you need to make the cost of using your chain really cheap. So that's what we've been doing and working with different L1s and L2s so that they can have gas sponsorship up to a certain point so that, as you all, need to do this gas station model, you don't even have to worry about gas fees because they've now actually covered that for you. So that's one of the things that we're working on. But going back to then onboarding these customers, the best and fastest way to onboard non-Web3 customers into a Web3 experience is making it as seamless as possible. And so the UX and UI has to be there. The challenge and why crypto has never taken off in like the way that it has, or in the way that it could have done, is because it's like really frictionful. You got to have wallet addresses. You've like a million chains. You've got different assets. People are like, what am I doing right now? People just have one Kenyan shillings, right? There's no like chain. There's none of these things that they have to worry about and think about, which then makes it like, what am I doing? Like, I don't want to lose the little money I have by sending it to the wrong chain or to the wrong wallet address. And so, as like fintechs like yourselves or fintechs that people already know and love and trust, right? Adopt stablecoins and let stablecoins kind of work seamlessly in the user experience, then that's when you start to see the non-crypto natives adopting like stable coins. And I think the other thing too is that like I think Africa has a different, and I specifically West Africa. West Africa I feel like has a different like stablecoin use case than what you might see in East Africa or even in LATAM. Because what in LATAM you see like like the sort of crypto adoption, not on the user standpoint. Like not like everyday people are not using stablecoins. Maybe places in Argentina people have stablecoins, but most places they don't. And so the stablecoin use case is really B2B flows. So like supporting anybody who's doing B2B, because they're like, a lot of LATAM is like remittances or like cross business, like, again, like exporters who are needing to receive money in whatever local currency. And so stablecoins becomes that, and like the treasury management, like that operational flow of sending funds. But in West Africa, where you see a higher adoption of stablecoin usage, right, because of some of the issues that they've had with currencies and things like that, people now want to figure out ways to use their stablecoins. Like, where can I use it, right? And so, like one of our customers, Rise is like a brokerage company that basically lets people invest in USD denominated assets. So people now, as they have stable coins, they can use their stable coins to top up and just use that money to then go invest. So like they don't have to lose money along the way. So like I think like again, where you get these experiences like for like a West African use case, people, you need to have a better UX UI so that people feel more comfortable and it's like embedded in things that they need and want to do every day or like at least monthly. In cases where B2B flows are most prevalent, it's first, solving that treasury flow and operational layer. And then the second layer is then figuring out how they can now offer stable coins to their customers more seamlessly. But being that their back end is most dependent on stable coins for like moving money across borders, right? So I'd say like those are the two ways. If you're in a market with heavy adoption and ownership, UX UI. If you're in a market where people don't care about stable coins and you don't have them, right, then it's B2B flows and getting B2B flows to highly need stable coins to make their business more efficient.
See,
Quick question on adoption.
Oshuka has a question. Rosalind has a question there.
I've noticed that desire to improve UX, there's a chance most people might not be aware of the volatility of the tech behind it. Have you balanced this out? When you say volatility of the tech, do you mean volatility of the asset or volatility of like the tech itself? Maybe you can like, clarify, Rosalind. Rosalind, are you there? Can you hear me? Okay, yeah, so sorry. Okay, so sure. I got it. So in terms of like the underlying asset for at least Blockradar, we only do stable coins. And this is actually where we see a lot of like businesses wanting to adapt because they don't want the volatility of Bitcoin. They really don't. Like Bitcoin is up and then it's down and it's up and it's up, right? So you see the need to have the stable coins as a way to reduce the volatility, right? In terms of the tech itself, I would argue that the tech is not really volatile. I'd argue the tech is complex, right? And there is a lot of complexity. But if you think about like, I mean, I don't really know the networks of like M-Pesa and like how complex things are in like M-Pesa world. But if you think about like credit cards or debit cards, it's a lot of complexity in running those transactions too. You've got like 10 players that like get a cut of the pie when you send one debit card or one credit card transaction. And people don't know and they don't care. People have a credit card, a debit card, and they go and spend it. If it doesn't work, they're upset. If it works, they don't care. And that's where stablecoins needs to be at that same level. And so as long as the asset's not super volatile, which is why stablecoins is probably the right way to go, users don't care. I think what users might care about is transparency. And so like I was just in Mexico on this panel and someone asked something similar and like the guy's answer was kind of like, look, people want transparency to know like what their money, like how their money is working, but then they don't want the complexity of like what's under the hood. And so like the guy was saying like, now one of his customers is like, man, like how are you able to do these remittances so cheaply and so fast? And he's like, oh, it's crypto under the hood. And they're like, oh no, crypto. I don't want any crypto. Like that's too volatile. And then he has to explain, like, hey, like this is crypto. This is why it's not volatile. This particular type is not volatile. This is how it works. But the reality is they didn't care at first. They came in to compliment. They came to compliment how well the product worked. And then when they heard this triggering thing, they were like confused. And so there needs to be some level of transparency, but there also needs to be like nothing, like crypto not being there, right? So it's like if you're looking in the fine print, you read that, oh, crypto is there, right? But if you are in your everyday experience, it really doesn't need to feel like crypto. So I'd say like transparency. Okay. Chris has a, okay, well, no, Dennis, sorry. Dennis, what is your take on local stablecoins? Yeah, so, okay. And then the next question is a lot of teams have built payment links and really focus on receiving scrolls. If you're in my shoes, okay, I'll get that. That's a very different question. So I'll have to come back to that in a second. So my take on local stablecoins, I think they're really important for the ecosystem long term. I think like in a market like Nigeria specifically, I'll use it's a market that's heavy on P2P because it's like, in the past it's been impossible to do bank transfers in and out of crypto. Like the banks will like block the transfers. And so then, P2P has become like huge and P2P is like, can be really expensive, right? Like when I off ramp to USDC in the US, I pay no money. I bring my dollars into like a Coinbase, it's free. And I move my dollars out of Coinbase and it's free. So that's not the same thing that happens for people in other markets. And so like the local stable coins actually become like the glue to these transactions. And so local stable coins in its first and most practical use case is like the ability to get in and out of stable coins and like local currency more efficiently. So in terms of doing that swap, you can do a swap and like, that transaction can be as low as 3 basis points. And then depending on who your provider is and like how they're getting in and out of the fiat to local stablecoin, and if they are like government sponsored, then it can be 1 for 1. So now you're almost coming out of your stablecoins at a very little cost. Maybe you're just paying 3 bips for that whole entire transaction, which is cheaper than converting dollars to Kenyan shillings or something like that. So I think like that local stablecoin is like the glue to efficient on and off ramping, like long term. And then I think the other use case that's interesting is like, this world where money is programmable, like it's truly programmable, right? And so like what we are seeing and hearing and reading about is like where stablecoins now, like where companies become more agentic and like they want to be able to programmatically like do settlements and things like that. Only stablecoins will be able to do all of those flows for them. So being able to program when to send funds, how the funds are sent out, where the funds go, you can't do that with fiat, right? It's all still going to be batched. And so again, local stablecoins will come in and be that programmatic layer that like clicks into AI, I think really well. So I think again, local stablecoins has a large role to play eventually, maybe not so much immediately, but long term for sure. Okay, last question, I think. Okay. Oh, were you going to say something?
No. Let's move to Chris's question.
Yes. Okay. Let's use payment link apps, but payment link I'm focused on is trying to get received. Scroll discount and move over. If you're in my shoes, which DJ would you double tap on stand up? Okay. So Chris, you're asking me about payment links. How do you stand out in a link where it's already in a space where payment links is already crowded? And these are stablecoin payment links, right? So the ability to accept um payment links. Is that right? Am I getting that right, Chris?
Yeah.
Where do you think why did you decide to build the stable link product? I guess is the question. Because then maybe I can help answer like how do you stand out? Why did you decide to build this product?
So I saw it as a good way of connecting the great providers we have for off ramping and on ramping with crypto. We have some good startups like Swiped, Pretium, and others. With the avenues that are opened by tech like account abstraction. So I saw it as a good way for anyone who is non-crypto native to receive crypto payments. And that's why I decided to build this.
And you're saying the other players aren't able to do this successfully, right?
I'm saying the marketing around it, the whole payment link thing. There are others with payment links as well, and I was asking, like, if you are in my shoes, what angle will you take when it comes to things like marketing the product itself and also the approach going into the market?
Yeah, so I think like this sort of fragmentation that you mentioned that exists when, non Web3 native folks are trying to like onboard into the payment using the payment link is what you have. Okay, so the best way to sell your product is through storytelling. And that's anybody in this call. Anyone listening, no matter what you're selling, you have to do storytelling. And so it's really important that you are able to effectively articulate your problem statement and why your problem statement exists, right? And so if you're saying there are other payment links that are like out there and like it's a crowded space, well, you decided to build yours for a reason, right? With respect to like, again, like, bringing some cohesion into like a fragmented, like, I don't know, checkout experience. So you really have to start with the problem statement, and like that's how you market it, right? You market it based on saying like, hey, this is the problem that X, Y, and Z type of businesses face, and here's how we solve that problem, right? And then your marketing will just do the work for itself, and that's what we did. Right, like I said, we're in crowded space. We have payment links too, right? Like, like we have this similar problem, but we very much talk about why we got in business, right? Like why our problem is still not being addressed by the people in the market. And so you have to make sure your problem isn't just like a generic problem. Like, for example, like if we think about wallet infrastructure, I can't just be like, oh, you know, um, businesses want to have stable coins and we, provide wallet infrastructure. Everyone in my space is doing that. So we have to say emerging market fintechs struggle with like figuring out how to actually integrate stable coins into their tech because either the market's too fragmented or like the API documentation is overly complex, or they don't feel like they have the right team in place to implement it. So that's where we come in, right? Now, how I've told you that problem is much more in depth to the problem that we're trying to solve and why we got in business versus just being like businesses want to be able to accept stable coins and we're doing that now. And that's actually what I had to help my co-founder with when I came in, because I was like, bro, like, and so what? Like why is this cool? Why is this unique? And so being able to like flesh that out and be clear about the problem, I think will help your marketing. So that's what I would say. Like, be clear about why you got into the business, be clear why the competitors can't do it. And that's your pitch to the world. Like, you say that solution in the way of solving it for your customers. So if you could help me in 1 to 2 sentences say now the problem you're solving, how it relates to your competitors, and then I can try to help you with a reframing. So maybe if you want to try that, we can do this exercise like real time.
Yeah, okay, let me try. So the problem is when it comes to non-crypto native users, the process of setting up wallets is complicated. Also, I think this is probably something I should have also realized. Fragmentation, like there's so many chains, all this complexity. So you make a wallet for the user and they can set up a payment link and anyone can send crypto from all these different supported chains using DymoPay.
You said, you said Dymo Pay?
DymoPay helps with the payments. It's an
Okay.
SDK.
Okay, so then you would say like, you say that Dymo Pay comes in and it unifies the ability to like receive stable coins as a payment method for businesses who only support, Web 2 clients, right? And then you can say like with the simplicity of our UX UI, with the simplicity of um, uh, like our train abstraction, we make it possible for customers to serve their non-crypto native customers, right? Like something like that. Now, I would argue, Chris, that problem was not specific enough. You need to get further along into that problem, right? Because I still think that people are solving that problem, the broad problem you've just mentioned. Well, most of the players are doing that. So like you really need to like work on, and by the way, I do these sort of mentoring sessions with folks and try to help them get through like articulating their problem and then, articulating the solution. But I would argue that it's still too high level and you need to kind of go deeper. But if you want to stick to that, my response would have been what I just gave you, right? But I think that you need to be specific about what kinds of businesses you're serving, Is it e-commerce? Is it fintechs? Is it, freelancers? Like who, right? Who is that segment that's struggling to integrate wallets as and payment links? And then, what like where your value comes in, the UX, UI, abstraction, whatever it is. But yeah, so I would just try again on that problem statement.
Awesome. So Finn is really, really pushing for one more question.
Okay.
Just one more, Morgan. So, if you find yourself in a market whereby your competitors allegedly have unfair business practices, how do you go about that?
Yeah, that's a good one. Let me think about that. I guess my best example would be like Coinbase versus Binance, right? Coinbase takes like the regulated approach, it takes like setting up entity, takes the whole like in quote like right way. Binance does something completely different, which then allows them to have the competitive advantage. Um I think that's tough.
Maybe I can comment.
Go ahead, Alan, and I'll think about my answer as you comment.
Probably use the fact that you're regulated as a value proposition for you.
Well, that's in the world, like you're regulated and they're not, right? Like I don't know what the unfair advantage is, right? Or what they're doing that's not ethical, right? Like in your example, Finn. But I guess to Alan's point, it would be that like you try to make sure your narrative and how you show up in the world is that you are compliant, right? Like, as Coinbase said, we're the most trusted exchange around and the most compliant exchange. So that is who you are, like if that's who you are, right? Like in this Coinbase example, and you need to make sure you say that. The challenge is, and this is why I say like it's a tough one if I use the Coinbase example, because like 90% of users don't care so much about like how compliant it is, but like in the Coinbase situation, they care Binance has the most liquidity, Binance has like the most ordered off ramps, Binance got P2P, Binance is cheap, and so people are like, I just want to use that unfair advantage. They don't even care about the unfair advantage, they want to use that other player. And so then you get like in the Coinbase example, you get like these customers, you almost get like premium customers, right? Like those who like care about being like compliant and all this sort of stuff. But like again, if that's not your market and you're not trying to be a luxury product, then I think you have to do another approach. And I think the other approach is like depending on how established you are and like how you show up in the market is working with the regulators, right? Like I know that a lot of the regulated exchanges in places like Korea or in Singapore work with the different regulatory bodies to be like, hey, like, how do we make this a fair playing ground? Like, how do you guys make sure that those of us who are doing the right thing are actually able to do our business to thrive rather than, you like, how are you guys like pushing out the bad business, right? How are you guys not doing, like getting rid of those who are not compliant, right? And you see a lot of regulators in these spaces have done that. Like in Australia, they like kind of threw out Binance, right? And so again, depending on your size and your scale and your network, how do you then work with regulators to make sure that they're punishing those who are not compliant?
Probably an addition will be, for example, if you compare USDT and USDC, I think USDT was removed from euro because they are somehow not compliant to the, is it MiCA or MISA regulatory?
MiCA, yeah.
Yeah. So probably that will be a good way to look at comparing the two, just to see what are the consequences of not being regulated, and then position yourself well. And then the other thing will be, with regulation comes with the idea of trust. That because this business is compliant, they're not going to run away with my money or something like that. So probably look at what does the customer get by the fact that you are regulated. So, and then try to build a narrative around that.
Right. But I guess like what I'm trying to say too with you, Alan, is that like that works if that's what your customers care about.
Yeah.
Right? If your customers don't care that you're regulated or compliant. In fact, some customers don't want you to be regulated and compliant. Right? So it's really about figuring out you know, like if that's who you are, I guess, Finn, if that's who your business is, irrespective of what we're talking about, I don't know what we're talking about. You didn't say like how they're doing unfair advantages. Like I don't even know if it's regulation or not, but like you have to understand who you are. And so if you are the doing by the book, you might just only get premium customers, like who care about the right thing. And so then if that's the market that you like, if that's the customer segment that you care about, then as Alan said, lean into that heavily. But if you aren't trying to build out a premium product or something like that, then it's really about like how do you make sure like the bad players are not thriving in your market.
Also, I'd like to add like majority of Web3 companies are unregulated. They operate in these gray areas.
You said they're not regulated. Is that what you said, Alan?
Yeah, they're not regulated.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, Collins.
The last one. I'm just thinking because you're talking about go to market and the market structures. How does then politics play into the whole market dynamics? Should we be friendly to politicians? Should we invite them in? Should we block them out? How does that work? Especially in other
Collins, that's
markets.
what I was trying to say without saying exactly that earlier when you asked that question. Like in an M-Pesa alternative, you definitely wouldn't recommend not inviting the politicians in. My God.
Okay.
But in markets, like if your product, again, and this is not necessarily for you, but if your product, like for example, our product is non-custodial wallet infrastructure. So it's this gray area where there's not necessarily regulation because we're not touching fiat and all of these different things. And so there's less of a need for us to go and like befriend regulators. That said, like as things evolve and crypto becomes more prevalent, we will definitely have to go and get political. But where your business's ability to be successful or fail depends on who's in office, you absolutely have to go befriend these people. Because like what, you've got the telcos, you've got the government, everyone stands to win when M-Pesa wins, right? So who are those people? That's what I was trying to say earlier. So in your case, I would definitely go befriend the different regulators. And that's what I meant by policy. Like, how do you build out a policy team? Like, the policy team is not going into befriending regulators. So regulators would never say they're friends with these people, right? But they're like breaking down barriers. They're educating. They're like, trying to find common ground. This is like what the policy people need. So like in your case, I would be like trying to hire like an external agency, or like if you've got people in the government, right, to start having those like those productive conversations. But befriending, let's not use befriending, but rather
Okay.
enabling them to understand what you're building.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Awesome call. Finn is almost choking me again here for another call, but for another question, but
No, it's an addition.
oh, it's an addition.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Morgan, it's up to you.
Okay, Morgan. In addition to what you said about regulation, so what we do as legal people in these markets, since regulations haven't yet like caught up to where society is at the moment, we find a way to make you compliant or your product compliant using those gray areas until a regulation comes in the future, because of the concept of like laws don't act retrospectively. So as long as you're compliant in those gray areas, in future when that law comes in, you can always comply with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. 100% agree with that.
Awesome point to end the session at. We are quite thankful for you sharing your knowledge, Alan as well. I think it's the first call where guys have stayed to the end.
Wow.
Yes,
Confirm.
we are extremely thankful. So I'll just